Okay, let's make a start. Are we recording? Welcome and welcome to the Fire Authority Human Resources Committee. Have we got any apologies for absence?
Chair, we've got apologies from Councillor Steve Battlematch, who's on leave.
Thank you. Any others? No. Declarations of interest? No. Minutes of the last meeting. Have we got any matters of accuracy? Any matters arising? Can we agree those minutes? Yes. Okay, agreed. Thank you very much. Fourth, we've got the Human Resources update. What we're going to do during each section now, Leila will pause and give colleagues a chance to ask questions where appropriate. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the standard HR update that's presented. I thought we would just split it into sections and take questions at the end of each section because of the meeting sequencing, we've got 4 quarters worth of data included in the report, which has made it a little bit more unwieldy than usual. So from section 2.1 onwards, talks about establishment management. So with regards to the whole-time firefighter establishment, we are currently 10 posts below approved establishment level. So we're at 422 posts and the agreed establishment is 432. The reason for the deficiency was we took a knowing decision to delay the commencement of the whole-time trainee course, which was due to start in April this year. We pushed it back to September this year, whilst we were awaiting clarity for this year's budget. So we've currently got 12 whole-time firefighter trainees at our Service Development Centre up in Ollerton, and you may have seen a lot of activity around whole-time recruitment has been ongoing over the last few months, and we are currently completing those recruitment and assessment centres with a view to another course of whole-time firefighters starting in April 26. So figure 1 at section 2.4 shows the whole-time establishment actuals versus establishment levels. With regards to the on-call establishment, the way that we measure this is slightly different because of their working arrangements. So we measure on a units basis rather than on a full-time equivalent basis. The establishment for on-call currently, the agreed establishment is 192 units and we're currently at 131 units, so below establishment levels. This is fairly standard and does reflect the challenges that are faced by the sector as a whole with regards to recruitment and retention of on-call firefighters. However, figure 2 in section 2.8 indicates our establishment levels for quarter 2 of 25-26 versus the same period of the previous financial year. What that does illustrate is that we are maintaining numbers, which whilst that feels a little bit unaspirational, it is a positive and is more than a number of other services are achieving at the moment. And then finally, to talk about the Green Book establishment. So Green Book is the term that we use to refer to all colleagues who are subject to local government terms and conditions. Traditionally, they may they're colleagues who may have been referred to as support or non-operational colleagues, but they do also include anyone who isn't a firefighter in our prevention and protection department, so that they do still fall into service delivery roles. So we've used the term Green Book to describe that through the report. And at section 2.10 you'll see figure 3 indicates that the Green Book establishment is broadly static and stable, so our actuals are reflective of establishment levels. And then with regards to turnover, figures 4, 5 and 6 illustrate turnover rates for all staff groups. Broadly, turnover remains low within all staff groups, and when we've looked at the reasons for leaving, it's broadly split between retirement and resignation, but because of the low turnover rates, nothing really remarkable in that data. So I'll just pause here in case there are any questions about establishment or turnover before I take us on to sickness absence.
Any questions, colleagues? Richard?
Yes, on the establishments, when you look at the numbers being a little bit lower, we know the reasons why, because we're delaying because of budget reasons or so. We're catching up then, aren't we, with those? But I mean, I know it's only a relatively small number of posts, but would that have had any impact on operations, i.e., well, in day-to-day what we do, but also does it put extra pressure on people, on other staff, which might lead to other things we're discussing in a moment about sickness absence? Does it have any impact on
Okay,
that?
so with regards to the whole-time establishment, you're right to say we are below establishment levels. When you look at, I did bring actually the data that was presented to the Community Safety Committee. So with regards to whole-time availability, our whole-time availability is very high in the 98-99% realm. So from a appliance availability perspective, it isn't having an impact.
Okay.
We do see at certain times of the year, so for example over the summer, because people want to take their annual leave as well, that there have been a small number of occasions where we've had to move people around to make sure that we are covering appliance availability. So I won't say that it's having no impact, but it is having a low impact, I would say. With regards to the on-call establishment, our on-call availability data from the data reported to Community Safety Committee, we're averaging at the moment 84.2% for on-call availability, and that compares to the national average availability of 72%. So our target that we set ourselves is 85%, so we are just slightly below that, but we understand the reasons for that and the work needed. And again, with on-call availability, that will vary depending on the station and the health of their establishment locally. So some of our stations, for example, Southwell and Blydydd, do see lower on-call availability than some of our other stations. And then we've got places like Walsall and Ashfield where and Hucknall, where they're up nearly at 100% availability. So it's a bit more of a variable picture.
Okay, but we're managing it. That's the big one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any more questions, colleagues?
No.
No, okay.
Thank you. Right, I'll take us on to sickness absence then. So this is from section 213 onwards. So the table at section 2.14 illustrates the threshold target that we set for the different staff groups for absence per person per year. I think just at 2.15 I've included just some national context about sickness absence generally for all employers, and it was reported through the CIPD survey in September 25 that it indicated UK employers as a whole were seeing an increase in days lost due to sickness, and that has increased from an average of 7.8 days in 2023 to 9.4 days in the previous 12 months. And I think it's useful context because you'll see some of that reflected through our own data for some staff groups. So with regards to whole-time absence, the graph at figure 7 illustrates performance for 24-25 against the target, and then also for the first 2 quarters of this year. Now you'll see for quarter 2 of this year, so July to September, we have seen an increase in sickness absence. And if you look at figure 8, that breaks down the sickness absence by the top 3 reasons for absence. So you'll see those as being musculoskeletal, hospital post-operative and mental health. So for the whole of 24-25, we were slightly above target for sickness absence, and you'll see for quarter 1 we were below, but for quarter 2 we have seen that increase, which we are monitoring closely. What we've tried to do where we can is to provide some national benchmarking data so you can see how we're performing locally versus the national trends. So at 2.18, we've included the most recent data we've got, which is for the financial year 24-25. We're very much mid-table for whole-time absence, so we're 18th at the moment, and our days lost is below the national average, which is 11.36 days, whereas we are 9.81. With regards to Green Book sickness absence, we did see through the last financial year, 24-25, that sickness absence was exceeding what we would expect to see, and we've done some significant targeted work throughout that period to look at some proactive interventions by both managers and also our occupational health unit. That appears to be coming to fruition and showing some dividends. So you'll see that Green Book absence for both quarters of this financial year is below our target, which is pleasing to see. And again, at figure 11, we've included the top 3 reasons for absence. I'd probably point out here that because of the smaller size of the cohort, the data will be more impacted by periods of long-term sickness. So you might have a very small number of long-term sicknesses which will skew the figures, particularly for this staff group because of the small size of the cohort. Again, we've included the national benchmarking data, so for the last financial year. Nottingham is 6th here, so higher than we would like to see, and we were at 11.46 days per employee versus the national average of 9.64. But as I've explained, that does look like those figures are coming down for this financial year, so hopefully a more positive trend. And then finally at 2.23 onwards, we talk about on-call absence, which is significantly higher than we would like to be seeing for both quarters 1 and quarters 2 of this financial year. When you look at figure 14, which breaks down the top 3 reasons for absence, you'll see what's driving that is very high levels of musculoskeletal absence, and also a significant increase, so nearly a doubling from the first quarter of hospital and post-operative absence. Again, when you look at the benchmarking data for last financial year, we are 7th in the table, so again at the higher end of the expected range, with a days lost at 19.53 days per employee versus the national average of 16.88 days. So in response, we have looked at what we can be doing to supporting both preventing people from becoming absent in the first place, and if they do become absent, what we can do to get them back to work as soon as we can. Not all of that is within our control, but some of it is. So we have taken some opportunities to increase the resourcing within our occupational health team, and we've established a new nurse post in there to increase the capacity of the unit, both for proactive and also reactive support for colleagues. And we have also done that so we are less reliant on external third-party provision for occupational health support. We do feel like we get a better quality of service by bringing that in-house. And then at section 227 and 228 just explains some of the other counselling support, directly accessible services and referral services that we have available for employees. So again, I'll pause here for any questions specifically relating to sickness absence.
Thank you. John?
Just looking at your absence figures, there is what looks to be something like a 300% increase in mental health. Now, I know the support's there. Is there any investigation as to why that is?
So is that for whole time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Figure 8.
So the work that we've done, we've looked at why we've seen this particular spike in Q2. It does look like it's driven by short-term sickness absence. Alex, have you got any more information on that? If not, then we can get some more detail for you.
Not to hand, although what I would say is anecdotally, a lot of that mental health, the reasons for those mental health, because we do stress risk assessments and things, and we have the OC Health referral service, we haven't noticed that they are work-related ill health, mental health reasons. We've had a couple of people who have been on long-term due to mental health, but they are due to things in their personal circumstances rather than work-related.
Well, that was my other question. Up 7.8 to 9.4, is that driven by more people that are on long term, which is pushing it up?
Not the breakdown, but we can get the breakdown.
It would be useful, wouldn't it? It would be useful to see what teams, if there's any trends within teams or stations or whatever else connected to that, I suspect.
And again, we've introduced the culture dashboard, which should help with some of that information.
Okay, thank you. Wendy?
What's the average cost of 9.4 sick days per employee per year?
Well, it will depend on whether they're what rank they are. I don't have that figure to hand. I can get it for you.
Thank you.
Any other ones? Andy?
Yeah, I see a lot of musculoskeletal problems being the reason for absence. Now, is that purely down to work related, or is that overall?
It'll be a combination of both. So I think when there's a number of just societal issues that we see. So I think some of what is translating through to our absence figures at the moment, things like longer waits or difficulty in accessing certain NHS services and physiotherapy and things like that, longer waiting times for surgery and appointments. So I think we're seeing some of that feed through. I think in terms of what we can do to support, we do have a dedicated fitness advisor who works with colleagues who are suffering from musculoskeletal issues to support them with strength and fitness to either remain in work or to return to work. We do also offer a cashback health scheme where employees can claim back the cost of physio services, and we do also offer referrals via our occupational health unit to a physiotherapist to support recovery, and that's a cost that's covered by the service. So I think the reasons for absence will be a combination of work and non-work related, and I think in terms of the support that's available to colleagues, we do quite a lot, both through dedicated resource and private referral as well where needed.
Thank you.
It's a point, isn't it? 'Cause I mean, if you look at, when we're looking at on-call in particular, I mean, musculoskeletal is 824. That's skyrocketed, as has hospital post-operative at 412.
Yes.
They're concerning levels, aren't they, I
Yes.
suppose, of absence. I'd be interested to see how those broken down to see whether it was some of it was work related and whether we could actually avoid people having accidents or getting strained if work's making a mill, I suppose.
We do record if it's from an injury at work rather than kind of general wear and tear from doing a manual role continually. I think also with on-call, with whole time, people can come back on modified duties at an earlier point to be able to do meaningful work for 8 weeks while coming back into their operational role. Whereas with on-call firefighters, there isn't a lot of meaningful work they can do as on-call firefighters. So they generally are off sick until they're fully ready to come back to work, which is why we see those longer as well.
Yeah, I mean, just concern, I suppose, looking at this, it depends if this is a blip, doesn't it? Because it's almost increased by fourfold in the space of a few quarters, which is quite a lot, really. So, thanks. Richard?
Yeah, well, actually, I was just going to pick up on that same point about the reason for the musculoskeletal. I mean, could it be some sort of reflection in general fitness for in some cases? I wonder, and also in general, when people, whatever the reason they've been absent, how do we do? What's the expression? Return to work interviews.
Yeah. So.
So we do.
Yeah. After every absence, an individual will have a return to work interview with their manager, and there's a a form for them to complete themselves prior to that meeting, and then they'll have that meeting with the manager, whether it's short term or long term, and they'll discuss the occupational health report that we've had back, or if it's a short term period of absence, discuss whether there's any referral needed to occupational health to get any additional support.
Okay.
And again, from that might be that it's referred into the service fitness advisor as well for additional support, depending on what a sickness absence is, or directed through EAP or occupational health provision.
And the interview, is it a sort of standard set of questions? Because different people will be carrying out the interviews, won't they? So the appropriate manager or leader. Do they follow, in effect, a sort of set format, set script, so that all the data you're getting in is comparable?
Yes.
So
there's a template for the return to work.
Good.
Can I just add, sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry, no, I was just going to add to that, in that having recently visited 3 fire stations and personally handled cutting equipment, I'm not actually surprised that there's musculoskeletal problems at all, because they wear tough.
Yeah.
Heavy and tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the BA sets.
Yeah.
that they wear.
Yeah.
In terms of fitness more generally, we do, so all of our operational colleagues will complete an annual fitness test, and the pass rates for those tests are very high, up in the 99%, so there's few colleagues who fail to meet the required standard for fitness. We obviously provide gyms at all of our service locations, and colleagues are afforded the time to use that as well, which we do encourage general lifestyle and health as well. So certainly I think members are right to ask the questions that you have, and to be questioning the absence levels, because they're not what we would like to be seeing. But I think for next time, if I may, Chair, it would be useful for us to present the data separated by work and non-work related absence. That might help to look at it.
Yeah,
I think it's just the upward trend which is concerning.
Yeah.
The other thing is that are they retested for fitness after a period of time?
Yes. So they're retested as standard annually, but if they return from a period of long-term sickness absence, they will be retested before they go back on the run.
And they have a fitness and a functional assessment before they can return to operational duties to ensure that they're at the standard that they need to be.
Okay, thank you. Is that it, colleagues? Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So I'll take us on to employee relations at 2.29. So the table at the bottom of page 17 sets out the number of disciplinaries, harassment and bullying, grievances and employment tribunals that we've had during the quarter. Generally, I would say our case load is very small, which does make it difficult to draw out meaningful trends or patterns for members from the data. I would like for you to take some assurance, though, that coupled with the work that we've been doing about managing misconduct, which is the other report on the agenda, we have implemented review processes. So after each of our serious misconduct cases, we will have a case review, and you can be assured that any learning that's identified from those case reviews we do take forward and share where we can across the organisation, accepting the confidentiality challenges that come with doing that sometimes. Is there any questions on that before I take us on to the qualities monitoring data?
Comments? No? John, sorry.
Yeah, I've got to ask, you've got one employment tribunal listed here,
Yeah.
which is due to be heard in October 2027.
Yes.
Why 2 years away?
Just because of the capacity of the court system at the moment.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's 18 months running. I know that from my day job.
Yeah. It's-
We don't set the date.
It just seems a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything to do with courts is a long,
Yeah,
long
long
time.
run period.
Okay.
Frustrating.
Yeah. Finally then, I'll take us on to the equalities monitoring data. So that's on page 18 onwards. So at 2.32, we just set out the workforce profile as of the 30th of September 2025 versus the same period last year. So with regards to sex and gender, currently women constitute just over 19% of our total workforce. You'll see the gender split for Green Book roles is we've got 55% women, and this is largely reflective across the different grade bands as well. With regards to representation, continues to be women significantly underrepresented in firefighter roles, both across the whole time and on-call cohort, with just over 12% of posts being occupied by women. We do still see significant underrepresentation in middle and senior leadership roles within the operational cohort, with 3 women out of 37 positions currently. With regards to ethnic background, we've got around about 10% of Green Book posts occupied by staff from an ethnic minority background, and that is a slight reduction on the previous reporting period. And as a whole, colleagues from an ethnic minority background constitute just over 7% of the total workforce, versus the most recent census data, which indicates our local communities are around about 22%. And this does demonstrate that the service has got more work to do to reflect our communities here. With regards to sexual orientation, around about 5% of our workforce are declared either being lesbian, gay or bisexual. And that is against a most recent census data of 2.68% of the community declaring. We do see higher levels of prefer not to say within the census, which does indicate that the LGB population may be higher than census figures indicate. With regards to disability declaration, declaration of the total workforce is at around about 5.64%. Unsurprisingly, the disability declaration rate is higher for Green Book roles than it is for operational roles. And for Green Book, that's at 12.43% of staff in this cohort versus census data of 20% of the population identifying as having a disability. And then there's just some information from 2.39 onwards with regarding recruitment activities that have either taken place or are underway. So we've already talked about the whole-time recruitment. So we received a total of 506 applications within the 4-day window that the applications were open for, and that process will complete in January 2026. With regards to on-call recruitment, we have our most recent on-call recruitment campaign closed in April 25, and of the 85 applicants that we saw for roles there, 15% of applicants were women, and that's translated through to 25% of successful candidates at interview. And then the table at 2.41 just illustrates the breakdown of Green Book recruitment and the number of applicants versus those shortlisted and appointed. And what this data broadly illustrates is a positive story, that it doesn't indicate that underrepresented groups are being disproportionately disadvantaged by our selection processes. So happy to take any questions on that final section there.
Questions, colleagues? Any points? No? I mean, we discussed this in the previous briefing that some of our figures may be a bit inaccurate. We've already talked about sexual orientation, whether people declare or not, and encouraging them to do that. And also disability, 'cause there's a disparity, 20% of the population. We've got less. Obviously, you'd expect that to a certain extent with the nature of firefighters. But we did talk about whether the workforce know the definition of disability that's been used under the Equality Act of a condition that's over 12 months or requires medication, etc., which could be something that makes us more reflective. And I suppose the other problem we've got is because we've previously seen we've got low turnover, rectifying some of the underrepresentation of women, etc., is always going to be a challenge.
Yes.
There's not any questions there, but I don't know. We're doing the best we possibly can to do something about it, aren't we?
I was like your sexual orientation, there is a prefer not to say element,
Yeah.
which can skew the figures. I'm finding that 20% of Nottingham population can declare as disabled. Hard to believe. That's 1 in 5.
Mm.
So I think there's possibly skewed figures there as well. Yes, I'm disabled on a census form, but are you really?
Yeah,
What,
but
1 in 5 is ridiculously high.
it depends on, I suppose, it's the definition, isn't it, of how they class disabled and what we look at it.
Is this the census that goes out where you tick in boxes though?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
open for your own personal interpretation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a margin of error in that.
Yeah.
What sort of disability would be permissible for the fire service?
So within operational roles, we do still have colleagues who would declare disabilities. So, for example, we've been doing a lot of work recently through our equalities team to support colleagues who are neurodiverse. So things like autism or ADHD, supporting colleagues who with dyslexia to be able to undertake their roles effectively. So I think historically what you might have seen, individuals have always been in the workforce, but they have maybe felt less confident to raise that they have got issues. So we've done a lot of work to give people confidence, I suppose, to declare that they may require an adjustment, because that helps us to offer a better quality of product at our training school. It helps people to access training materials more effectively, and technology is really helping us here as well. So things like your computer being able to read things aloud to you if you'd prefer to access information that way. We're able to provide support through our e-learning training platform. So we've done a lot of work, and I think we are seeing some of that translating through into higher declaration rates for disabilities within the operational cohort particularly.
Just out of interest, do you do training on psychological safety in the workplace?
So it's something that we've started to do, and our Healthy Mind Staff Network have really been helping us with this as well. So they have had an initial training course on psychological safety, but it is an element of other courses that we do, but it's certainly a conversation that has really come to the forefront recently, I would say.
Thank you. Any more points, questions, colleagues? Okay, the recommendation is we scrutinise performance and seek assurances, and we've asked for some more additional information in terms of sickness rates, etc., whether it's work-related and so on.
Yeah.
Okay, we're happy with that, colleagues?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to agenda item 5, standards of behaviour progress update.
Thank you, Chair. So this report was previously presented to the HR committee 6 months ago, and members will recall the background to this, some ongoing conversations around values and culture in the fire and rescue sector generally, and a lot of negative media reporting and negative cultural reports that had been commissioned by fire and rescue services across the country. So His Majesty's Inspectorate undertook some further research, analysed the inspection reports from all 44 fire and rescue services, and then went in and inspected 10 services and did a thematic culture and values inspection. So they produced in August 2024 specific report with 15 recommendations entitled Standards of Behaviour, and that's really talking about how effectively services generally manage misconduct issues. So this report just sets out our progress to completing those 15 recommendations. So in summary, of the 15 recommendations in the report, 11 have now been closed. Of those that are outstanding, 2 of the recommendations require national work to progress, so I'll just pull those out as we go through. So the report's really split into 4 key themes. Culture in the fire and rescue service, and we've previously reported the 3 recommendations in that section, which is set out in section 2.4 of your reports. We've previously reported all of those closed. From 2.5 onwards, the second section of the report talks about how well services are identifying misconduct issues. So there are 3 recommendations in this section, 2 of which are closed. The third one, which remains open, relates to services either creating or having access to a dedicated professional standards function. So the intention of this from the Inspectorate was really for fire and rescue services to look to establish a professional standards unit, which is terminology you'll be familiar with, translates directly across from the police force. There are some challenges to that for us locally. One is that professional standards units in the police operate under a different statutory framework. They have specific legislation that enables that to happen. Fire and rescue services are governed by general employment law and the principle of natural justice that flows from that. And you'll have also seen from the previous report the low case numbers that we have, which makes it quite difficult for us to justify establishing a standalone unit. So what we took the decision to do was to commission some independent support to help us specifically with this recommendation around professional standards. So we engaged a consultant who did a national review of what services were doing and the different models that were being adopted, and for them to make some recommendations to us about how this specific recommendation can be progressed. That was reported through to SLT in September, and really what the review recommends is that we look to establish a fixed term resource for a professional standards officer, which we've now done, with the intention that they will oversee a review of our workflows and also our policy and procedural arrangements for dealing with misconduct. So, for example, at the moment we have 2 sets of policies and procedures, one for firefighters, Grey Book, and one for our other colleague, Green Book. So looking at how we can standardise that so we have a single way of dealing with misconduct across all staff groups. And looking also at how we can improve the performance monitoring and performance management of those misconduct processes. So we've now established that fixed term post, and we're seeking to recruit to that. The other message that came through clearly from the consultancy report was with regards to learning and development, both for the whole workforce and then also for those colleagues who are specifically involved in delivering misconduct processes. So we have sought some additional fixed term resourcing for an additional leadership and management development trainer to look at reviewing our what we call HR essentials courses. So they are the base courses that all supervisory managers get in the organisation to make sure that the training reflects the knowledge, skills and behaviours they need to have to identify and deal with misconduct locally, and then coupled with the training for investigators and those that are hearing, chairing disciplinary panels and appeals panels to make sure that we've got standardisation and effective working within those misconduct processes as well. So that takes us on to 2.11, which talks about how effective misconduct processes are in the service. This was the meat of the HMI report. The bulk of the recommendations sit here. So there are 7 recommendations in this section, of which we've now completed 5. And those that are outstanding are the training that I was just talking about. So the training for investigators we have just delivered, and that fell into September, so that will be reported in the next report to this committee. And the chairing for hearings and appeals panels is actually taking place yesterday and today. So again, that work's well underway and will be reported through as closed to members next time. And then the final section of the report talks about how well we as an organisation understand misconduct and how well we're sharing lessons learned. So we've done some significant work in this area. I talked about the case review process that we've now implemented, and also for the first time we have put an annual summary of learning out to the whole workforce, so all colleagues can see if there are any themes that are coming through from misconduct processes and what they can do as individuals to support the organisation on this front. And then again, looking at the national recommendation, which we're waiting for, is for the National Fire Chiefs Council to establish a system where services can share this learning between themselves. I think it's obvious what some of the challenges are here in terms of making sure that we are sufficiently anonymising data. It does make it sometimes difficult to pick out and share the themes effectively. So we're waiting for the National Fire Chiefs Council to establish a system to support us to do that. But what they have done is set up a professional standards and conduct network. So we are now well integrated into that, which is positive. So I think that's everything I wanted to say. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Wendy?
Yeah, I'm just interested, how do you evaluate the success of your training compared, I mean, knowledge and skills is quite easy to evaluate, but how do you evaluate and assess a change shift in behaviour?
It's really difficult. I probably don't need to tell you it's really difficult. So I think our training evaluation processes generally are not as good as they could have been, and we've done a lot of work to improve not just the system but also the uptake of that, because we do ask for feedback after courses.
Yeah.
We tend to get quite low response rates, so we're working hard to make it simpler for people to give feedback, but also to try and improve the quantity and the quality of what we're getting. I think with regards to misconduct specifically, some of it is about, you know, from the case review processes, some of what we've seen is, and I think this is not a Notts Fire and Rescue Service issue alone. If supervisory managers had the confidence to deal with things sooner, actually we don't want to see things coming through into formal processes. We would much rather they be dealt with quickly at a local level. It's kind of the whole thing about dealing with conflict and having those difficult conversations and nipping it in the bud. Exactly, yeah. So I think that you're absolutely right. It's not just a knowledge and skills, it's also a behaviours and confidence thing. So I think that's why we've recognised we need not just a review of our HR essentials packages, but also the additional leadership and management development support will allow us to do more face-to-face training. It'll allow us to have more coaching and mentoring type discussions with our particularly supervisory managers, because I think seeing some of that confidence and behavioural change, that's how you get some of that. It's not necessarily just sitting people in a classroom.
Exactly, that's what I was going to come to, because it's not about, it's about, by all means give them the correct training, but it's about giving them the opportunity to put that into practice. Yes. Because I've seen so many times that people go, oh, you know, I've sat them on a one-day assertiveness course and they haven't come back assertive. So it's about giving them that opportunity to put their learned skills into practice. So those coaching and mentoring conversations are really great to hear that, you know, you're putting those in place.
And I think, you know, we recognise this is it's not going to be a quick fix. And actually some of the conversations we've been having about the professional standards unit or team, what does that look like, how would that work? There are some unintended consequences if you go about doing that the wrong way. So we have taken quite a cautious approach to it, because you don't want to risk kind of breaking
Yeah.
something that isn't broken. So
Brilliant.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, because this is a sector nationwide issue, isn't it? So this is one of those occasions where you might be working with other fire and rescue authorities, perhaps, to either share good practice or even learn from others. Have we done any of that yet, or is it a bit too soon in the process? Or?
Do you want me to?
Yeah.
So the NFCC Professional Standards and Conduct Network, that is what part of that, the remit of that is.
Yes.
So myself and Amy are both part of that network, and it's only recently come to fruition, but that is what we'll be doing and sharing what we currently do, what other people do to get ideas. Because like you say, it's a national, we're all following,
Yeah.
you know, the 15 recommendations. So it is.
So it's still early, really, to go into that sort of detail, isn't it?
I think we would say as well, so just over the border in Derbyshire, they were very positively commended for the work that they had done in this area by the HMI during their last inspection.
Right.
So we've been and spent some time over there.
Okay.
Some of their processes and policy arrangements we're looking to replicate, and the training that we've done for investigators and also for hearing chairs we're doing jointly with Derbyshire as well. So we've got officers from both services on those courses at the
That's good.
moment. So we're definitely seeing that happening across the board.
Shared experience.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, colleagues, anything else? John?
Yeah. Misconduct is a pretty broad term, isn't it?
Yes.
So I've just flicked back under your employer relations, and there is a grand total of 18 things that have been upheld. A pretty low number, considering. Is there any data to how that particular thing compares nationally? And have you noticed a trend with regard to that as well? I was just wondering whether it falls in with the absence.
Okay, so with regards to the data, when we talk about misconduct, what we're really talking about is disciplinary issues, so
Yeah.
bad behaviour. So in the previous report, we had 5 disciplinary cases for the year, so very small numbers. One of the frustrations that I have got at the minute personally is that this data is collected by the HMI, but we're not able to get national benchmarking data at the moment. So we know it's there. We are speaking to our service liaison lead to see if we can get access to that, because I'd be really interested to know for similar sized services, is our caseload reflective?
whereabouts
Is
you
it
sit
higher
in
or lower than
a
you'd
table of
expect to see?
disciplinaries.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
So just so I'm clear, the previous report was 5.
So for disciplinaries, when you look at the employee relations casework in total,
Yeah.
that's obviously higher, but that includes grievances and harassment and bullying and employment tribunals. So when we're talking about misconduct, we're mainly talking about disciplinary issues.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we happy with that, folks? So we're just going to note the report, agree to receive further updates. Okay?
Yep.
Agreed? Okay, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
that concludes the meeting. Thank you for your